When it comes to Kingdom Hearts, a lot of people see it as a pretty kid-friendly series, but that doesn't mean they don't have some pretty brutal boss fights. Hey everyone, my name is Crimson Rosso, and welcome to my first video. I'm here to tell you about some of the hardest bosses in the Kingdom Hearts series. And before we start, let's lay down a couple ground rules, alright? First of all, I won't be counting any of the data fights, because that seems a little too easy, and I want to make this list a little more varied. And second of all, these bosses are not meant to be in order. They are all just super tough fights that will beat your ass and just make you cry. And one more thing, this is absolutely a response to that god-awful Mojo video. And with that said, let's get to it.
Do you need some help?
Riku!
Is that?
Yes, a Keyblade. But unlike yours, this Keyblade holds the power to unlock people's hearts. Allow me to demonstrate. Behold! Now, open your heart. Surrender it to the darkness. Become darkness itself!
This is it! This power! Darkness! The true darkness!
Starting off this list is the Dragon Maleficent boss from the OG Kingdom Hearts. Now, the battle before this is with a normal version of Maleficent, and that fight really isn't all that difficult, so you don't really expect the next fight to be as much of a challenge. But boy does it throw you for a fucking loop. The dragon she turns into is huge, and while she isn't the most aggressive boss on this list, all of her attacks have a chance and will cover a huge range of the arena. The only way to really hurt her at all is to hit her head, which is a pain in the ass since her head moves around throughout the fight because of her fire attacks that she shoots out. Another thing that makes this fight so difficult is not just the boss, but your own AI partners. Kingdom Hearts partners from the original game had really terrible AI and would do shit like heal you when you didn't need it, or run in and not attack, or overuse the items they had. So they always had a habit of just constantly dying, meaning you have to fly this fight solo, which is always real fun in action-oriented games where you're meant to have partners. When Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories first ever came out, it was honestly kind of ignored since several people thought it was just a spin-off game, but it most certainly was not, my good sirs and ma'ams, and it had one of the hardest bosses around. Now, in Chain of Memories, you fight Sora's best friend Riku a grand total of 4 times throughout the entire game. And while the first 3 fights aren't all that challenging, his 4th and final battle is on a totally different level. He is one of the fastest bosses in the entire game, alongside being incredibly aggressive. He has a large range of attacks, and now possesses the Dark Aura attack, which is an attack where he teleports all around the arena at incredibly fast speeds, making it almost impossible to dodge him, and at the end he slams his sword down onto the battlefield, creating several towers of dark energy that, if they hit you, can cause you to invert your controls due to confusion. And for a fight like this, that's basically just a death sentence. Oh, also before this, Sora had a fight with Donald and Goofy and ran off, meaning they can't help you. And in this game, it's probably where they're at their most helpful. So you can't rely on Donald healing you or attacking with magic, or Goofy to do a charge attack to give you some space in battle, which, if I'm being honest, kinda sucks. Up next on the list is the final boss of Terra's story in Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep. Now, this boss fight is kind of like Maleficent's in a way, in the matter that the fight before it is kind of a cakewalk, and the fight right after it is ball-bustingly difficult. After you basically commit elder abuse by beating down old man Xehanort, he then steals Terra's body and tries to leave you as nothing but pieces of armor. But Terra's will controls his armor and fights Xehanort to try to get his body back. How does his will do that? Well, I don't know. Don't ask me. I'm just here to talk about boss fights. Oh, yeah, and this boss fight really makes you work for it. Terranort, as we just call him now has several new attacks, like chucking a bunch of meteors at you from far away, or summoning a giant ball of energy that covers a huge amount of the area. Oh, yeah, by the way, if you're thinking like, oh, well, I can just spam the mine ability, that'll work. Yeah, that doesn't work because the dash attack he has basically lets him slide through those without taking any damage at all. So have fun! Yeah, I'm sure every single Kingdom Hearts fan knew this one was coming. The Lingering Whale boss is infamous among many Kingdom Hearts fans for the longest time as the hardest boss fight ever in the series. Until a certain Remind DLC came out, which has got a special someone we will get to later. Don't you worry, my dear viewers. Now, the Lingering Will is interesting in how he's unlocked, as he's one of the, if not the only Kingdom Hearts boss that's unlocked by beating Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix 100%, which, when done, opens up a portal to the Keyblade Graveyard inside of Mickey's castle. Because, of course he does. Why wouldn't it? What other secrets do you have, you devious mouse? And when you enter it, a cutscene happens where Terra's armor from Birth by Sleep, you don't know that yet, though, comes to life and decides to challenge you to a fight. And Jesus Christ, he does not mess around. He's one of, if not the fastest boss in the entire game. He has a crazy arsenal of attacks that can either have insane range or allow him to cover the arena like a crack addict hunting down his next fix. Hell, his aggressiveness rivals the Dark Riku fight we talked about earlier. Trust me, when I say, when you go into this fight, you better go into it prepared. We're finally here, folks. The OG Ultimate Kingdom Hearts Challenge. Sephiroth, the main big bad of Final Fantasy VII. And he is fought by entering the Platinum match at Olympus Coliseum. Oh, and he pretty much makes every single fight in the main game look like a fucking joke in comparison. First off, you have to fight him in a very small arena, and almost every single one of his attacks cover a large range of the arena, making dodging his attacks feel impossible like 90% of the time. His attacks do a large amount of damage, and if you get too close, he has a spell that he can cast that covers the area around him, so he can basically punish you just for trying to get close to hurt him. And hilariously, he has so much health that it can look like it's never going down at all, which is just so demoralizing. Also, fun little story about this. When I first fought this guy as a kid, I thought I was doing something wrong because he was never losing any health. So I never beat him until I got the game on the PS3. Didn't make it any less difficult and soul-crushing, though. For number 5, we're going back to Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep with one of the 3 secret bosses in the game. The boss fight simply known as the Unknown, but we basically all just know it's just a version of Xehanort because of course it is. He's only unlocked by either clearing the game and unlocking / beating the Vanitas Remnant in the Wasteland section of the Keyblade Graveyard. And while at first I was considering the Vanitas Remnant for this list, considering he is not an easy fight at all, this guy beats him out for a couple of reasons. The first is that unlike the Vanitas Remnant, he has 4 bars of health compared to the Remnant's single one. and it feels like he has far more attacks in comparison to Vanitas. Seriously, he possesses so many attacks, it feels like he's two bosses combined into one. He will constantly be on the offensive throughout 95% of the fight, and unlike the Remnant where you're fighting in a fairly large arena, the area you fight the Unknown it's about a fourth the size, making it way, way harder to dodge him and his crazy attacks. He is a boss that will basically require you to master the game if you want to win.
Who are you?
Ansem?
What's that supposed to mean?
Yep, we're doing another Xemnas secret boss on this list. This time, it's from the Final Mix version of the original game. This guy is unlocked by entering a sphere of darkness that's found at Hollow Bastion. When you enter it, Xemnas appears in the room and decides to attack you. In order to test you, I think? I'm not really sure. It's still kind of unclear to me since he needs you for his plans in the future and he's clearly fighting to kill you. But whatever, you do you, Xemnas. I'm not a boss, I'm just a grunt. So for this fight, Xemnas likes to use a lot of attacks that both have long range and deal a large amount of damage. You know, the perfect boss combo. Oh, with the added bonus of being able to create a shield to block your attacks. He can also curse you with an attack that does continuous damage, alongside having the ability to turn into an invulnerable mist to fly around the room and dodge your attacks. Which are, fun techniques to have for a boss fight. And unlike the Xemnas fight in Birth by Sleep, where you get a tiny bit of downtime in the fight, it feels like this version never lets up at all. That's probably because you're a lot slower in Kingdom Hearts 1, but that's just me. But his single worst attack is when you start getting his health down, he creates an orb around himself that shoots lasers from it. Then he just starts moving around the room in the ball. And the ball will hurt you if you touch it, the lasers will hurt you if you touch it. Basically what I'm saying is just go into this fight prepared to get crushed. Yep, it's another boss from Kingdom Hearts. It's also the single most annoying boss in the entire game. This boss is unlocked by going to Neverland, putting Peter Pan in your party, and talking to Tinkerbell so you can go to the clock tower. When that happens, the Phantom boss shows up and you fight him. And he is a dick move boss in a nutshell. He moves around constantly and is really hard to avoid, and possesses an attack that is basically a homing missile. But there are actually 3 reasons why he's such a pain in the ass to fight. The first is he has a spell called Doom, which can kill you in one go. And the only way to stop it is to use the stop spell on the clock before it hits 12. And he doesn't really tell you that either, so you gotta figure that out by yourself. But that also opens you up to a hit from him if he's close to you. Second is that in order to actually do damage, you need to make his heart appear. But it only appears if you use magic on the orb in his cloak. So you're going to need things like ethers and elixirs to basically make it through this fight. And finally is the battle takes place in the air, which not only has some of the clunkiest and floaties controls in the game, but you can't use things like dodge roll here, making attacks way harder to avoid. And I'm going to be completely straight with you. This is a boss that you should just skip. He doesn't really give you anything worth beating him. So he's just not worth your time to go through all that frustration unless you want bragging rights. Yeah, another Kingdom Hearts boss. Hey, first game had some pretty tough bosses if I'm being honest. And this one is dedicated to our good friend Ansem. Or to be honest, the crazy Ansem Heartless shit battle in the World of Darkness. Now, the first two fights against Ansem aren't really the toughest things in the world. They can be a bit tedious, but they're not really difficult. It's the third battle, well, that's where things get challenging. First off, this fight takes place while gliding around, and like I said with Phantom, it's not the easiest thing in the world to deal with. The next hurdle is that in order to beat him, you have to go through a pretty crazy gauntlet. You have to start fighting his body first, then you have to fight the head, and then you have to fight the body again. The fight is really long and can be pretty demoralizing and exhausting. And alongside that, you need to start this fight off without any party members. Now, I know I criticized the party members in the Dragon Maleficent part, but in here they're actually kind of helpful because they can take attacks for you. This time around, you have to deal with him yourself for the first phase by yourself. And one more thing I should add, every time you want to get a party member back, you have to start dealing damage to him and beat him. Then you have to go through a gauntlet of enemies. Then you can get one of your party members back. After that, you have to do that again, beat another area so you can fight more enemies. And then you can get another teammate back. And then you fight the final phase, which throws so much stuff at you. It's absolutely insane. I'd honestly consider Ansem to be the hardest final boss in the entire Kingdom Hearts series. Not the hardest boss, but certainly the hardest final boss. Now, if we're talking about the hardest bosses, oh come on, you all know he had to make this list. The infamous final boss of the Remind DLC, the badass super boss himself, Yozora of Verum Rex fame. Now, I need to point out that it's already hard enough to unlock this guy as it requires you to beat every single data boss battle in the Remind DLC, which are all insanely challenging in their own right, but Yozora makes them all look like an absolute joke. God, where do you even start with this guy? Okay, so first off, if you want to stand a chance at all, you basically need to be max level, and even then you need to have mastered control of this game. And also, that's not going to help you all that much because this fight will still hand you your ass. It's that much of a difficult challenge. He has a massive amount of health, is beyond aggressive, has multiple attacks that can bring your health down to 1. He can use special attacks where you either dodge because you can't block or block because you can't dodge. And if they hit, they can, what was it again? Oh yeah, they can permanently lower your health. And halfway through the battle, he summons this crazy arena where he just starts throwing those mechas from the Toy Story level at you like a child throwing around his toys. And it ends with an attack that, if it ends up connecting, knocks you down to 1 HP. He also has an attack that can hold you in place and completely punish you. Oh yeah, he can also steal your weapon so you can't fight him for a short time. He is just such a dick. But that's not the worst thing he does. The absolute worst thing and most dickish ability I've ever seen Square pull with a boss fight is this. He has an ability that can not only steal your health, but it can steal your Kupo coin. Now, for those who haven't played 3, a Kupo coin lets you basically come back to life when you die. And, guess what? That also applies to Yozora. So, when he dies, if he stole your coin, he gets to use it and come back to life with half his health. Basically meaning you have to continue the fight while he's back at full power. Well, semi-full, I guess, if you want to be technical, but still, it's still dickish. He is such a challenge that some people, myself included, consider him the hardest boss fight in the entire Kingdom Hearts series. Maybe even one of the hardest boss fights in all of JRPGs. Also, little fun fact about this guy. He was so difficult that some playtesters literally cried while fighting him. And if that doesn't convince you he belongs on this list, I don't know what will. That's all for this list. Thank you all so much for watching. If you like this, make sure to like and subscribe. And if you have a boss you think should be on this list, let me know in the comments, and I may make another list for him in the future. That's all for now. Have a good day, and until next time.
It's the placeholder outro. Till we can find something that's royalty free. Please like and subscribe.